Yo, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to yet another tier list video. In today's tier list, we're going to be ranking every single season in Fortnite, both in Chapter 1 and in Chapter 2. As always, be sure to hit that like button down below, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and enjoy the video. For the very first season of Fortnite, I actually did not play this. I didn't start until Fortnite Chapter 1 Season 2. So for Season 1, I am going to have to put it in the didn't play category. For Season 2 of Chapter 1, this is when I started playing. This game was very new to me. Of course, this is the first Battle Royale I had ever played. Was really fun getting to learn the game. Also, Christmas time was around this time as well. So you had all the Christmas trees, you had the bushes with the lights, and just overall, this was a very kind of just chill season. This was when a lot of people first started playing the game. Unfortunately, I didn't know what the battle pass was in this season, so no, I don't have the battle pass. But overall, as a season, I'm going to say it's meh, only because in comparison to the other seasons, it wasn't really a lot. Moving on to Season 3, this is the first season that I bought the battle pass for. This is when I really started to get into the game and start grinding and play it heavily. Also, as we all remember who played back then, this was the season that they added tilted towers. Probably the biggest thing that a lot of people remember from this season is when we first got the glimpse of the meteor in the sky. This was absolutely crazy. The whole community went absolutely ballistic, loved it. As well as leading up into Season 4, there was actually fragments of the meteors that would crash on the island and destroy people's builds if you just so happened to be there. Seeing people's reactions to that kind of stuff really set forward what people's reactions would be to a lot of the other future events. This was just the small beginning of what Fortnite would start to do as far as the in-game stuff that would lead up to events or other things that would go on inside of the game. So Season 3, really fun season. I'm going to have to say that this was not a great season, but it was still a really good season nonetheless. Moving on to Season 4, the heroes versus villains, really good season. There was a lot of things that happened. Of course, the meteor finally crashed into the island. We saw stuff like the hop rocks come into the game, the first vehicle that we saw added to the game with the shopping carts. Season 4 also saw our very first live event with the rocket that everybody thought was going to destroy tilted towers, but decided not to and left a ginormous rift in the sky. We also got the very first secret skin with the visitor in the battle pass, and as well as a lot of people can remember from this season, the most difficult challenge that ever existed with the unlocking and opening 7 chests in risky reels. It will forever and always be the most difficult challenge that I've ever had to complete. So for Season 4, I am going to have to put this as a great season. Moving on into Season 5, we saw our very first biome change with the Paradise Palms area. This season also brought in the rifts, as well as some of my favorite POIs to ever exist with Lazy Links and some non-named POIs as far as Westworld and Viking Village. So it brought in a lot of really good and fun map changes. Season 5 also brought with it the first major vehicle with the ATKs. And of course, how could we forget our beloved Kevin the Cube was born in Season 5 when the big rift in the sky finally closed. Kevin moved around a lot during the season until it came to its final destination at Loot Lake. So overall for Chapter 1 Season 5, I am going to have to say this is easily a great season. For Season 6, this is probably the only Chapter 1 season that I don't feel too great about. The reason being is that yes, we did have a major live event with the butterfly event in this season, but the one thing that I really just didn't like about this season, even though it brought some really great things within the battle pass, the map changes were pretty decent, it's just the fact that I did not like this Fortnite mirrors at all. I'm pretty sure yes, this only lasted for 2 weeks, so it doesn't really hurt the season all that much. But the horde was just absolutely annoying. Being chased around by a bunch of zombies just was not fun at all. Quad crashers, which were really fun, were introduced into the season as well. But overall for Season 6, it wasn't a great season, but I still will have to say that Season 6 was still a good season. For Season 7 of Chapter 1, absolutely love this season. This brought yet another biome change with the snow biome. You had a lot of crazy and fun things, including the battle pass. You had not 1 but 2 vehicles added in this season with the planes, which had a lot of mixed feelings about, but you also had the hoverboards, which were a really fun item to use. Especially I know a lot of trick shotters absolutely loved using the hoverboards. The event this season wasn't really that great. I know a lot of people don't like the event that happened in Season 7 with the Ice King, but nonetheless the event did lead to a snow covered map, which brought frozen hordes, which I don't know why Fortnite didn't learn that lesson about people not liking them in season 6, but these hordes did not last for very long at all. I'm pretty sure they lasted the same, if not less, than the hordes did in season 6, but being that this was a snow covered map, this was the first time we have seen this in Fortnite, and it was just really cool and fun to see. Another thing that was added in this season that was really cool was the block. It did replace, unfortunately, risky reels, but the block is something that I actually hope they bring back in chapter 3, but it was something that was really cool for the community to get involved and create these things that would eventually become POIs inside of the game. And finally, for season 7, we had the build up to the volcano with the earthquakes and the cracks that were created on the map, and of course in Weeping you had the smoke coming up, so it was a really cool build up leading from season 7 into season 8. So easily for me, season 7 is going to have to be a god tier season. For our next season, we have season 8. Season 8 was a really good step from season 7. Absolutely loved the volcano and the other new biome that was introduced in this season with the jungle. We had a lot of mobility that was added this season with the cannons, the ballers, which I hope really do come back in chapter 3. Super fun to use. And we also had the air vents, which were spread out along the volcanoes, as well as the volcano itself. Season 8 was also the season that reboot vans were added, which was a much needed feature inside of the game and one of the best that they've ever added. Also with this season, we had one of the best live events that we have ever had with the unvaulting. It was really cool to see Fortnite give the community a choice in what was being unvaulted. Yes, they kind of have that in today's season with season 8, but it was kind of cooler back then because that was the first time we had saw the 0 point, the live event. Also with this live event, we saw Tilted destroyed, which was something that a lot of people wanted to see. Even if you loved or hated Tilted, it was something that was just really cool to see finally happen inside of the game. Also, Retail Row was destroyed and Polar Peak was hit, which eventually led to the monster escaping into the water. So for season 8, a really good season. A lot of fun stuff happened in this season, so easily I'm gonna have to put season 8 as a god tier season. Moving on into season 9, easily for me, this is my favorite season all time, so we're gonna go ahead and throw it up into the god tier. Season 9 brought a lot of really cool features. We saw Neo Tilted and we saw Mega Mall, which did replace the destroyed POIs from the last event. We also had a really cool feature added with the slipstreams. Slipstreams are something that I thought was really great throughout season 9. Slipstreams were easily my favorite means of mobility throughout season 9. Was just a really fun and cool way to move about the island. Season 9 also saw the pumps getting vaulted, which I know a lot of people in the community did not like, but it was actually okay because this is when they added the combat shotguns, not when they were nerfed. If you didn't play with the combat shotguns outside of chapter 1 and you only played it in chapter 2, trust me, they used to be good and they used to hit for a lot more than 20 each time. Season 9 also saw the best event in Fortnite, in my opinion, even up to date with the monster versus mech. This was absolutely crazy. To see that statue that was a Neo Tilted be used as what was holding the sword for the mech was really cool. We saw the 0 point get exposed and we also saw the monster remains left on the middle of the island. So like I said, easily the best event in my opinion. Lastly, for season 9, we also saw Fort Bites. Fort Bites were something that you could collect every single day that were scattered about throughout the island, which unlocked certain edit styles throughout the battle pass. And overall, all the pieces that you collected eventually led to the event being told throughout the puzzle. So it was really cool to see Fortnite actually tease an event through things that we collected every day throughout the island. So just another really cool feature that was added this season. Going on into season 10, this was probably the most chaotic season that we've had in Fortnite. As Zeke said, the world was destabilizing fast.
Season X is here, and the world is destabilizing fast. But don't worry, that means there are a ton of new ways to play Fortnite.
And he wasn't kidding. With the addition of the mechs, this really split the Fortnite community in half because there were a lot of players that actually did like the mech, but I want to say a majority of the player base hated the mech. The mechs were super OP and it ultimately led to a lot of people quitting Fortnite. But if you took the mechs out of it, this season could have possibly been the best season of all time. I know a lot of people said the map was too cluttered, but compared to the map that we have now in chapter 2, I would much rather take a cluttered map over what we have now. You saw so many POIs change throughout the season. We saw Tilted turn into Tilted Town to start the season, then it turned into Gotham City. We also saw other POIs change and go back to older POIs. Some of the changes were great and some of them weren't. I know a lot of people didn't like when Greasy Grove turned into the Taco Time thing, and then of course Retail Row turned into basically a zombie POI with the hordes. But nonetheless, season 10, when it came to map changes, was just absolutely perfect. Of course, with season 10 being that this was the last season in Fortnite, we had the end event, which led into the black hole that we had to sit there and watch for about 36 hours before we finally got chapter 2. But as far as the rating for season 10, a lot of people might disagree with me, but I still think this is a great season even with the mechs. Going on into the first season of Chapter 2, this was rough. Yes, we did get a new map, which a lot of people were happy about, but the loot pool was reset to an absolute bare minimum. There was absolutely no means of rotation for this season. Launch pads were taken out. We didn't even have shopping carts. There was no ATKs, no nothing. We had boats, but if you wanted to drive or move around on land, you were gonna have to use a boat driving down the street, which a lot of people did not like at all. This chapter did bring in some cool mechanics with the swimming, the fishing, and the picking up, which I know a lot of people really loved those things being added. There was also some fun stuff added throughout the season with the Star Wars event. We had Fortnite Mares and Christmas, of course, with the presents that were all in this season. But the biggest thing that a lot of people did not like and really hated this season for was the length of the season. The season lasted and was extended actually 2 months, which made it last over 120 days, which in my opinion really killed the momentum that this chapter had going for it. On top of that, we only had one content update, and that was to add the harpoons, which I guess we can agree, but to only have one major update like that to add harpoons just makes this season, in my opinion, very meh. Moving on into season 2, definitely an improvement on top of season 1. You had a really cool theme for this season with the agents, with the ghosts versus shadows. Another really cool feature to add for this season was that you had the ability to pick up and shake down and would reveal the location of nearby enemies. Other cool things that were added in this season were the vaults. So if you killed the boss that was there, you took the key card, unlocked the vault, you got a bunch of really good loot. You also had mythics that were added into this season, even though Midas's drum gun was the most annoying mythic to ever have to deal with, being that the controller spammers would just push into your box and spray and not let up. Other than that, you had some really cool POIs that were added in the season with the grotto, which I know a lot of people loved. You had the agency, you had the shark, and of course you had the yacht. This season had 2 live events with a concert, and you also had the story live event being the device, which ended up leaving one of the coolest things with the ocean storm. The one thing that did hurt this season was the length of it, being that this was the beginning of the pandemic. A lot of it did get pushed back, so it's understandable as to why it got pushed back, but it really kind of led to a lot of stuff inside of the game becoming stale and dry. But overall, I definitely will have to say that season 2 of chapter 2 was definitely a great season. Moving on into season 3 of chapter 2, one of my favorite seasons in this chapter, if not my favorite season of the chapter, so it's definitely gonna have to be in the god tier. The reason why this season is god tier in my opinion was the map changes that we have. The map changes were phenomenal, and they were consistent throughout the season as the water levels eventually came down, seeing that a lot of the POIs were on like the buoys and floating. We also had some really fun POIs added to this season with Rickety Rig and the Fortilla, which I absolutely loved landing at. On top of that, for this season we actually got rotations, which was actually something that we needed for this chapter, and we finally got in season 3. Launch pads were added back to the game. We had the whirlpools, which are a really cool fun means of rotations. We also later in the season finally got cards added to the game, so something that was really fun. Loot pool wise, the pumps were actually taken back out of the game again, and we got the charges. The charges were very frustrating to use at first, but after about 2 to 3 weeks I finally got the hang of it, and I actually learned to like and enjoy the charges. The sharks were very annoying to deal with. Not only would they jump out of the water and bite you and deal damage, they would also eat your loot if you left it out in the water, so something that a lot of people just didn't like about season 3. But overall, like I said, it was a really fun season and definitely gonna have to be god tier. Up next we have season 4. Season 4 was the Marvel season and the completely restrictive Marvel battle pass that a lot of people enjoyed but didn't enjoy, being with how restrictive it was. Season 4 has some really cool map changes when it added the start thing on top of Frenzy, just something that was completely unexpected but really cool at the same time. The one thing that I would have to say that I didn't like about this season was the mythics that were added in season 4. The Doom gauntlets, the start gauntlets, and the unibeams all were very annoying things to have to deal with. Season 4 also had probably one of the worst Fortnite mares that we have ever had. I know a lot of people did not like the fact that once you died, you turned into a ghost and then you would come back and then fight other people, and that led you to, if you weren't dead yet, to be ganged up by 10 to 20 ghosts. I know myself and a lot of people did not like that. I just easily think that was the worst Fortnite mares that we've ever had. To end the season, we had the Galactus event, which was very hyped up, but in my opinion it was an okay event. I think a lot of people really hyped this event up, which rose my expectations. But if I've been playing Fortnite long enough, I know the biggest thing to do is not get your expectations or hopes up for anything that happened in chapter 2. So for season 4, I will say that this is a good season. It is not like these two down here, but it's nowhere near a great or a god tier season. For season 5, we're just going to call it what it is, and we're going to call it the collab season. That's really what it was. This season had an unreal amount of collabs, and it just made every collab that happened in the season just feel completely unspecial. I did like the map changes for the season with the middle turning into the sand, because I really love the sand tunneling feature. Of course, my favorite feature in the season is going to have to be Mando Sniper. I already love sniping as it is, but the Mando Sniper just made it that much easier for me. So sniping in the season was one of the best things that I enjoyed about it. We also saw some old POIs returning this season with Flush Factory. We saw the Viking ship from Viking Village appear near Holly. We also had Tilted Towers return and merge with Salty Springs, creating Salty Towers. A really cool feature that was added this season was bounties, and I'm really glad that they stayed. We also saw some pretty cool POIs brought into the game with Stealthy Stronghold and Hunter's Haven. Lastly, for this season, we probably saw what was the worst Winterfest ever possible. This Winterfest absolutely sucked in my opinion. The fact that we didn't get a completely snowy map, we only saw a corner and fraction of the map turn to snow, I think was a huge letdown for this Winterfest. So for overall season 5, I'm gonna say it was a good season, but it was nowhere near a great one. Now for season 6, I'm just gonna go ahead and put this one as bad. This season was probably the worst season I have ever played in existence. In the 4 years that I've played this game, you had probably the worst things that you could have added into the game added in season 6. The POIs that were brought in this season were absolutely horrible. You had the Spire, you had Boney, you had Colossal Crops. They also added bows, which are very annoying from mid to the end of the season, just absolutely being sprayed with 30 stink bows. You had 30 shockwaves. It was just really annoying when people would spam with these items. Also, to start the season, you had a live event, I guess you can call it. It was a story mode single player event, which really didn't make it feel all that special in my opinion. So it was probably in my opinion, if you want to compare it to other events. Season 6 also brought the worst wildlife possible into the game with the Raptors. The Raptors, they hit for a lot. They're annoying. They'll chase you down. They're faster than you. This was probably the worst addition wildlife wise that I think Fortnite could have possibly made into the game. And on top of everything that was horrible with this season, Fortnite thought it was a great idea to add Wild Weeks. Wild Weeks brought upon the Fire Week, which then increased the fire damage per tick to 15 and increased the spread of it. Now, did Fortnite get rid of that after season 6? No, but dealing with it that week when there were a lot of fire items in the game was absolutely horrible. So easily season 6 is the worst season that I think has ever been in Fortnite. Moving on into season 7. Season 7 brought with us the mothership that hovered over the island, which was pretty cool, not gonna lie. You also brought in UFOs, which at the beginning of the season I really didn't think they were going to be that much of a problem, but as people kind of eventually learned how to use them and spam with them, they did eventually get annoying. In my opinion, the only cool things about this season was the Skyfire live event, which brought back the immense amount of Kevin cubes that we saw, which was really cool. Some of the very few things that I actually did like about this season were the railguns, being that I love to snipe. Railguns were really fun. I understand how a lot of people didn't like them, being that you can shoot through 2 builds and you can hit somebody if they were sitting behind a build, so they were kind of OP in a sense. Another thing that I liked about season 7, which was a really cool feature, was the mini game that you were able to play when you were abducted by the UFOs. Once you were abducted, you were taken to the mothership, which gave you the ability to get better loot from it, so that was a really cool feature that I liked. Season 7, like season 2 of this chapter, did have 2 live events. One was a concert with the Ariana Grande concert, and the other, which I mentioned earlier, was the Skyfire event. Another thing that I just absolutely did not like about season 7 was the fact that they somehow managed to make POIs worse with the abduction of other POIs such as Slurpee and Coral. They just made these POIs worse. Of course, at the end, they did abduct Corny, but Slurpee was a really good POI in my opinion until they turned it into sludgy swamps and just made the POI really bad. As far as Coral, nobody really cared about that. I'm surprised that they managed to make a POI that was already bad even worse, but hey, Fortnite managed to do it. So honestly, I am gonna have to say that this season to me was just very meh. And last but not least, we have the current season with season 8. Season 8 is probably the biggest debate of all time, with the fact that at the end of the Skyfire event, we saw all the cubes that fell blow up a bunch of the POIs, and then we got into season 8 and they're all fine. The only map changes that we got for this season was the crash sites. The crash sites were actually pretty decent because they had a lot of loot. They also brought back one of my favorite features within the crash sites from season 9 of chapter 1 with the slipstreams, so that is something that I thought was pretty good about it. Some more good things about this season were the polls. The polls allowed people to vote on which things would come back into the game, so it's kind of a scaled down version of the invaulting event, and of course less dramatic than the event, but nonetheless it is a feature that I do like, and hopefully Fortnite continues to do that at some point in chapter 3. Continuing on with the map changes throughout the season, we did get a lot of the corruption spread throughout the map as the cubes would move. Of course, once the cubes gathered inside of the center of the map, we then formed Cube Town, which then became the Convergence, and then the Pyramid, which we now see currently inside the game. Lastly, one of my favorite small features about this season was the reboots. The reboots, not only did they add more reboot vans to the map, but they also increased the reboot car time tremendously, which was something that was really nice, so that people weren't just sitting and camping on cars for a solid like 4 to 5 minutes. So something that was small but a really good impact on the game. As for the rating of this season, I am going to say it is just good. Nothing about it like these other seasons really make it a great or a god tier season for sure, but there are a lot of good things about this season which make it to me just a good season. And that is going to be it for today's tier list video. Be sure to comment down below any changes that you would make to your tier list. Also list down below the reasons that you would make to this season as far as to why you would change them and what you liked and didn't like about it. Other than that, be sure to also hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you guys next video.